Bueller.
Do you want to add some excitement to your classroom? Do you want to reduce classroom management issues? How about increasing your students' content retention? Welcome to the ESOL in Action workshop. In this workshop, you're going to learn how incorporating student movement in your lessons can do a number of things. You'll be able to add excitement and fun to your classes. You'll be able to reduce classroom management issues, and you're going to increase your students' content retention. When your students come to school, are they mentally prepared for learning? How about physically prepared for learning? In the traditional classroom, students are sedentary for the entire duration of the class. Meanwhile, the teacher moves about the class. Did you enjoy classes like this when you were in school? I know I didn't. The traditional classroom is due for a change. This workshop is designed for teachers at Mount Hebron High School, located in Ellicott City, Maryland. 100% of the teachers are native speakers, and 100% have master's degrees. The teaching experience ranges from 3 to 26 years. The faculty in the program consists of 4 full-time teachers, 1 part-time community liaison, and 1 instructional assistant. The ultimate goal of these teachers is to fully integrate English language learners into mainstream classrooms. In order to achieve this goal, ESOL teachers have 3 needs. They need to provide a stimulating but comfortable environment for student learning, they need to reduce classroom management issues, and they need to increase student content retention. This program is divided into 4 modules. In Module 1, we'll discuss why movement in the classroom is an effective teaching strategy. Participants will be able to identify 3 reasons why student movement in the classroom is an effective teaching strategy. Participants will also be able to explain why teaching styles in which students are sedentary are not as effective as those in which students are moving. In Module 2, we'll discuss how student movement can reduce classroom management issues. Participants will be able to explain 3 ways that student movement can reduce classroom management issues. Participants will also be able to explain why teaching styles in which students are sedentary can result in classroom management issues. In Module 3, we'll discuss how student movement can increase student content retention. Participants will be able to explain 3 ways that student movement can increase student content retention. Participants will also be able to explain why teaching styles in which students are sedentary can result in poor student content retention. In Module 4, we'll discuss many activities that can incorporate movement in the classroom. Participants will be given a list of teaching strategies. They'll be able to identify which strategies incorporate movement in the classroom and which do not. Participants will be able to modify an activity that they use in the classroom so that it includes movement. And teachers will be able to implement these activities the very next day. This training program will have 3 specific outcomes. 1, participants will have the knowledge necessary to generate their own ideas about how to incorporate movement into the classroom. 2, participants will walk away with research-based teaching strategies. And 3, participants will be able to develop a community classroom in which students support, respect, and assist each other with understanding content and doing classwork. The budget for this training program includes development and implementation. This includes the workshop presentation, travel expenses, time for research, conferences, purchase of resources, and refreshments. The presenter will be assessing the effectiveness of the workshop in multiple ways. This includes observation, informal review of worksheets, monitoring participants' discussions, and an evaluation form that will be distributed at the end of the workshop. Module 1, Why Movement Works. The first concept to remember is that learning and movement are innately connected in the brain. Think about how you learn. You learn by observing someone else, then doing the action yourself. Observing and doing are how we learn from childhood to adulthood. The second concept to remember is that emotional connections enhance the learning experience. If a student is moving around in the classroom, they will connect the content they are learning with the positive experience of being engaged in an activity. And the third concept to remember is that stress negatively impacts the ability to learn. A low-stress, highly engaging environment works best to encourage learning. One of the best ways to establish a low-stress, highly engaging environment is to develop a classroom community. To do this, students need to know each other and be comfortable with each other. And this brings us to our first activity, find someone who. I have passed out this worksheet. Your goal is to have a name for every characteristic on the list. I'll give you 15 minutes to complete the worksheet. Go! Now I'd like you to take a moment and write on your worksheet why movement works. I gave you 3 reasons at the beginning of the program, but you can include your own if you'd like. You can write your answers on the worksheet under Module 1. I'll give you a few minutes to write. I see that everybody is done writing, so with the people at your table, I'd like you to discuss why movement works. As I was walking around the room, I heard some really great answers, some very interesting conversation. I just wanted to review some of the ideas that I had suggested earlier. One of the ways that movement works is that learning and movement are actually connected in the brain. Another way is that there's an emotional connection that enhances learning. And the last one is that it creates a low-stress classroom community. So this activity is great. It gets people up and moving around, and students get to meet each other. But is there a way to adapt this activity for learning English as a second language too? The answer, of course, is yes. Here's one suggestion for how to incorporate this activity into your lessons. It can be used to review verb tenses. Give each student an action, like I am swimming or I have been to the zoo. The students can walk around the classroom asking each other, are you swimming? Or have you ever been to the zoo? The students have to find those classmates who are doing or have done that action. Module 2, Classroom Management. I'd like to present to you a few statistics. Primary Sources, America's Teachers on the Teaching Profession, was a 2012 report by the companies Scholastic and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. About 10,000 teachers were surveyed, and these are a couple of the statistics that I'd like to bring to your attention. The first statistic is that from 2009 to 2012, an increase in behavior issues was noticed by 68% of elementary school teachers, 64% of middle school teachers, and 53% of high school teachers. More specifically, in Maryland, 99% of teachers reported having at least one student in their classroom who needed assistance or intervention for social, emotional, or behavioral challenges. This isn't going to surprise you, but movement in the classroom can actually reduce classroom management issues. But how? First, I'd like to list a few of the classroom management issues that tend to occur in ESOL classes. One is that students with the same native language might start talking to each other instead of doing an activity. Another is that students might use their cell phones to text or look at Instagram. Some students might have too much energy, other students might not have enough energy, and then there are those who are distracted by thoughts of a problem at work or at home. Movement in the classroom can resolve these issues because it increases student alertness, brings up student energy levels, and refocuses the student's brain. The reason for this is biological. The hippocampus, which is critical for converting information into long-term memory, has a limited capacity. After approximately 15 to 20 minutes, the student brain reaches capacity and the student stops paying attention. This is when classroom behavior issues begin. In March 2017, the New York Times published an article titled "Why Kids Shouldn't Sit Still in Class." The article quoted Scott McQuigg, chief executive and co-founder of a company called GoNoodle, which is a classroom management program used by 60,000 schools in the United States. "We call this the movement, Mr. McQuigg said. If we invest 3 to 5 minutes for our kids to move in the classroom, we are actually going to optimize the next 45 minutes for learning. That small investment in time has such a big yield for teachers." Ray Pica is the founder and director of the organization Moving and Learning. She's a physical activity specialist who has written 18 books. She says that when students are physically active, they are more readily attending to the learning task. And this brings us to our second activity, reverse charades. Reverse charades is almost exactly like regular charades. The only difference is that one of the students from each group has their back to the board and they need to determine from the rest of their group what word or phrase is on the board behind them. To give you an idea of what it's like to play this game, we are going to do it. So I would like one person from each table to come up to the front of the room. I'm going to place chairs in front of the board and you are going to sit facing your group. Now I'd like you to take out your worksheet again, and this time I want you to write about 3 ways that purposeful movement can reduce classroom management issues. You're going to write your 3 ideas on the worksheet that I handed out earlier. I see that everyone has finished writing, so I would like you to take about 5 minutes to discuss with the people at your table those reasons that you just wrote down. As I was walking around the room, I heard some really interesting ideas, very good discussions. I just want to review some of the ideas that I discussed earlier in the presentation. The fact that movement in the classroom increases student alertness, it also brings up student energy levels, and it refocuses the student's brain.